Hello, friends, and welcome to The Practical Church Musician, a podcast of practical tools and ideas for volunteer and part-time church musicians everywhere. I'm Dr. Sam Fleming. Each week, we explore the real joys and challenges of serving as a church musician, whatever your denomination or background. From building your musical skills to managing the administrative side of a program, this show is here to support your growth and strengthen the work you do for your congregation. Thank you for being here today. Well, summer is fully upon us, and many church choirs are now on break, and hopefully music leaders and accompanists everywhere are taking a sigh of relief after another program year. And while summer for many church musicians tends to be slower in some regards, most of the time, this time of year is a shift in pacing versus a complete break. So that being said, if your church choir takes a break during the summer, which I highly recommend, be sure to take some leisure time for yourself. If you're an organist or pianist, try to take a few Sundays off throughout the summer. Use it as a time to recharge and gear up for the regular choir season that will start back up in the fall. Now, with the fall in mind, today, for episode 3, I want to talk about how to maximize your summer quote-unquote break to help you be as ready as you can for the fall, which in turn will help you build a thriving program. Whether you are new in your current role or have been there for many years, I hope there's something that you can glean from how I approach my summers so that my program is set up for success throughout the year. So let's dive in. As a teenager, I had a church leader who I looked up to a lot, who shared a phrase that has really shaped my work and shaped my thinking. He would frequently tell us youth that, quote, proper prior planning positively prevents poor performance. I don't know where he got the phrase, but it has stuck with me for many years. Proper prior planning positively prevents poor performance. And it's really easy to remember too, because of all the alliteration. Summertime is a time to make a lot of plans for the future and a time to really think about and set goals for what you want to accomplish in your work in church music in the coming year. Think of this as a time for New Year's resolutions, so to speak. There are 3 principal phases to my summers that help me build a music program. These phases are number 1, reflect, number 2, plan, and number 3, finalize. These phases can be accomplished over a long amount of time throughout the summer, or in an hour or two once a month throughout the summer. It all depends on the scale and scope of your program. Maybe it's just you, maybe you have one choir, or maybe you run a multifaceted program with various ensembles to consider. Spending time on each of these will help you and your program grow. So let's start off by talking about the reflection phase. A week or two after my program year has ended, and I have a little time to catch my breath, I like to sit down and reflect on the past year. And there's a few different categories that I like to focus on. The first category in this section is focusing on people. I start with looking at my people numbers for the year. Within the numbers analysis, I ask questions related to people involved in the program. After all, church music is really about people, isn't it? So I ask questions such as, how many people attend rehearsal regularly? How many new people stayed with us throughout the year? Who did we lose and why did they stop coming? Was or is there anything I can do to help them come back? Were there any major barriers that prevented people from participating regularly? How many singers do I have in each section? What sections do I need to more actively recruit for next year? If I have volunteers who help with things like the music library, who serve as section leaders, who serves as a choir president or other roles, how did that go? And how did they do? I actually end up talking to all these people as well to kind of take the temperature and see how things are going. After I look at the people, and these are just some sample questions too of things that you can ask regarding the people in your program. I then move on to looking at what are the major accomplishments that we accomplished this year. So some questions that I typically ask might include things like this. What did we accomplish as a music ministry this year? What were our big successes in our church services? Were there any performances we accomplished outside of regular worship services, concerts, evensongs, firesides, things like that? What major accomplishments and progress did I make as a conductor or an accompanist? What musical skills did my ensemble improve in? Did we build a better community this year? What were the main goals that I was looking to achieve? Did I accomplish them? After looking at major accomplishments, I then sit down and write down things related to repertoire and the music library. These kind of go hand in hand. They're somewhat separate, but they do tie together nicely. So the first question I ask is, what repertoire, hymns, instrumental music, etc. did we do? I look at all the music that we did for the year. And I usually pull all my music lists and everything, and I take an inventory. And then I also look at the hymns, and I say, were there enough familiar and new hymns in the mix this year? Personally, I strive for around a 70% familiar, 30% new balance for the hymns. So people are generally familiar with a majority of the hymns, but we're introducing 30% new hymns as well. After all, most churches that have done music with typically have hymnals that far go beyond what you might accomplish in a year. So why not look to use that resource and expand people's fluency in that resource? The next thing I ask is, did the musical repertoire accurately reflect what I and my church leaders were trying to accomplish? If there were specific goals that we wanted to accomplish with repertoire, did we accomplish it? Did it provide a good experience in worship? Things like that. What were the strengths and weaknesses of the repertoire that we did? What worked well, what didn't? Musically, maybe even doctrinally or theologically. But what had its strengths and weaknesses, and did it accomplish what it needed to? Was there enough repertoire or too much for specific big services, such as those related to Advent, Christmas, Holy Week, and Easter? Were my ensembles successful in performing the repertoire that we did? So not only was the repertoire of good quality, did it accomplish the things as the repertoire itself, but how did my ensembles do? And where does that need to improve? Was I also successful in performing the repertoire that I played or sang or led? So if you're at the keyboard, were there pieces that went really well and other ones that did not? Take some time to reflect on your own personal growth as well. What would I have done differently with the repertoire this year? So go back and reflect on the repertoire that I did, what worked well, what didn't, and then what would I do differently in this coming year? And then this last question is specifically related to the music library and the organization of it. And that is the way my music library set up functioning well? What processes are working well? What are not working well? The summertime is a great time to engage volunteers from the music area to help you organize the library, to recatalog it if you need to, and just say, is the music library functioning as it should? If it's not, then what do I need to change to make it more efficient and really just function well too? The next category of questions I reflect on are related to schedules and rehearsal management. How did my schedule balance out with everything this year? And this is talking about my own personal schedule. Did I have enough personal practice and preparation time? Because we all know, especially if you're in a music director role, there's not nearly enough time to get into the preparation and personal practice. So was there enough time for that? And if not, think about how you might be able to change that. How did rehearsal schedules work for my ensembles? Think about if you have any weekday rehearsals, as well as the Sunday morning rehearsals, whether that's just the warm-up or whether that is a full-on rehearsal on Sundays as well. But is the time working well? Are people arriving on time? Are they having a good experience with the rehearsal time itself? Are there frustrations that you need to consider for next year? If you're a conductor of a choir or another ensemble, ask yourself, what was my ratio of talking to music making in rehearsals? And how can I do less talking and more music making? If we want people to come and have a great experience in rehearsals in church choir, or really any choir or other ensemble, we need to think about how do we talk less and make more music? How can we give instructions clearly but very quickly and succinctly so that we get back to the music making? Because people want to feel like they're coming to make music and not just listen to a director talk. Regarding rehearsals, are they well paced? Do they start on time? Do they end on time? This goes back to the talking a little bit also, but does it feel like the rehearsals move at a good pace? Are there times where it feels too slow that you lose people's attention? Consider those types of things. Also related to rehearsals, ask yourself, am I accomplishing my main goals in rehearsals? So when you leave a rehearsal, did you get through the things that you wanted to? Or are you leaving a rehearsal and saying, oh, wow, we only got through 25% of what I had planned? And then reevaluate and figure out where you need to make improvements. If I did some sort of ensemble or music area retreat, what worked and what didn't work? I highly recommend considering doing a retreat of some sort. And that can be mostly a social thing. That can include a rehearsal thing. Something that I like to do is I'll have kind of like a morning, like a Saturday morning, and typically we'll just do it at the church. And we'll invite the entire music department, music ministry to come. So if you have multiple ensembles, everybody gets a chance to come and mingle with each other. And we do a light breakfast. And then we kind of have an overview of what the upcoming season is going to be. And then we split out into our different ensembles and we have rehearsals. Sometimes you have to enlist additional people to help with that. And then at the end, we come back all together for a lunch. And typically I'll have people bring, it's kind of like a potluck lunch or whatnot. But there's a big social aspect to it, but also a chance to set some vision and to work on music a little bit before the regular season starts. So, and that's kind of how I do retreats. But think about that. You know, how did the retreat work? If you do something at the end of the year, did that accomplish any goals? Just always thinking about like what worked and what didn't. All right. So the last category here in the reviewing phase is reviewing things related to budget. Now, this will vary significantly depending on what tradition you're working in or how just the business side of things are set up. But some questions to consider. What was my budget for the year, if you had one? So just go back and look at what was budgeted for the year. Are you aware of what that number is? And then ask, how much did I spend? How much did our department spend? And was this amount of spending reasonable? Was it too much? Could we have spent a little more? Just look at what your spending habits were. Then ask yourself, did I have enough financial support this year for purchasing music, folders, and other supplies, hiring guest musicians, if that's applicable to you? But yeah, how was the financial support of the program itself? You could also internally reflect about if you get paid, your own salary and stuff like that too. But really just considering the budget of the program is something that I like to reflect on every year. And if I didn't have enough financial support, what would have made the difference? Obviously within reason, but what would have made the difference to help this financial support be beneficial to our program? And then once you know those things, maybe you can sit down and talk with the powers that be regarding your budget and what things you might be able to do later. We'll have a further episode where I'll come back and we'll talk about budgets more specifically and ways to fund your program and how to get creative with funding and things like that too. So that's all for the reflecting area. And it's important to reflect both at the end of the year and throughout the year, especially around like the busy times and the big holidays, Christmas, Advent, Holy Week, Easter. I try to do at the end of those seasons, I try to do a mini reflection of major services or concerts the week after those events take place. That way my mind is really aware of what happened and things are still fresh in my mind, and I can go back and add these reflections. I'll write things down and then I'll go back and add them to a document and use them when I go back and do a year-end reflection. Reflecting to me is a way to not only analyze how things went, but also is a way to help remind me of all that was accomplished. If you have any ounce of ambition as a church musician, you know that you are always pushing for bigger and better and higher quality, etc. And this is good. I also find, though, that reflection, it helps me keep things in perspective. It gives me a chance to reflect on my time, and on the time of all those who were involved, and it helps me kind of see like, oh, here's what we accomplished. This is great. And it's great to be able to share your successes and even some of your struggles with your ensembles, and with other leaders or other people in your congregation. It shows the human aspect of what we do. Sometimes we get into the rhythm of the program year, and we don't really go back and reflect on those things. So take time to reflect and don't hurry through it. And how you do it is going to be different based on what context you are working in. But take time to reflect, and that is really, really important, I think. So this next phase is the middle phase, and this is a big phase and the one that will probably take up most of your summer. But I call this the plan phase or the planning phase. So once your reflection time is done, you can move on to making plans for the upcoming program year. And this is an exciting time, but it can also be daunting. In the planning phase, you are going to revisit the same areas that you just reflected on, but you're going to be looking at them with more of a forward outlook. So I'm going to review some of these categories, and you can probably connect the dots from the first area already, but I'm going to reframe these categories with a planning mindset. So major questions related to people that I ask. Who do I anticipate returning to my ensembles this year? Who are specific people I can invite to join my ensembles? What barriers can I remove to help people participate in the music ministry? What recruiting efforts am I going to make throughout the summer? How can I involve current members of the music program in helping recruit and bringing others into the music program? How do I strengthen the sections of my ensemble that need help? What ways can I involve other people in the music ministry in helping with the administrative side of the program? Things like collecting and distributing music each week, numbering music, maintaining the library, taking attendance, just so you know who's coming and who's not, making personal phone calls to people to invite people to come, helping you with your email list, whatever the administrative side of. Look at how can you delegate some of those tasks and involve more people. Then looking at major accomplishments for the coming year. What major accomplishments do you want to accomplish this year? What growth do you want to see in yourself? And what growth do you want to see in your ensembles? What musical skills do you want to build? What are you going to do differently this year? Are there any major works or major events or concerts that you want to do this year? If so, list those all out. This is a point where I also consider a question that I think is worth further discussion later on, and we'll probably come back to it on another episode. But it's the question of what role does a church have in providing music education to the people who participate in its music ministry? And that may be different for different churches, but what role does it do and why does it have that role? So consider that in considering what musical skills you want to build and how you want to help your musicians progress. All right, so next, moving on to the repertoire and music library section of this phase. And this is kind of the fun part, and it's also the part that probably takes the biggest amount of time, at least for me. So I'm looking at what repertoire do I want to do this year. I plan what Sundays each repertoire piece is going to be assigned to also. So, if possible, I include choir anthems, song responses, psalms, hymns, and, when I'm really ambitious, I try to even plan prelude and postludes for the whole year. And I create a document, and I list all the dates out, and I just write down what I'm thinking for those. During this phase, this is why this takes a long time, but I'm frequently consulting scriptures, what holidays or seasons are we in, liturgical seasons or not, what other things are going on in the church, and stuff like that. So going back to this concept of building musical skills, how will the repertoire that I do this year help my ensemble grow and build those musical skills? Am I doing too much of any particular repertoire? So sometimes I'll go down and say, okay, am I doing too much of one composer? We all have our favorites, and that's okay. But it's good to look at programming a wide variety or diversity of music. And so how do you change that mindset, or how do you be more intentional in your programming to include different types of music? I frequently say that different music speaks to different people. So how do you find music that speaks to different people, even if it doesn't speak to you all the time? Like, yes, you should have some ownership in it, but if there's a style of music that speaks to some people in your congregation, it's worth programming some of it to help them be able to connect through music as well. The next question I ask is, what new hymns do I want to introduce this year? Simply put, do I have a list of ones that people don't really know? I don't know. But I like to go through and just look at what new hymns can I introduce. Another question is, how much repertoire can I pull off without over-programming? So sometimes I will purposely plan way too much music. And then as the season gets going, I will sometimes drop some pieces. And I let the choir know ahead of time. I say, hey guys, all these are on the schedule. Just be aware that this could be subject to change. And usually when that's subject to change, that means that I am dropping certain pieces. And I try to be flexible in that, because sometimes I think a piece is going to work and it doesn't, or sometimes I think a piece isn't going to work, but I want to try it a little bit and it ends up being a success. Another question I like to examine is related to the music library. And I just ask, is there anything new to the music library that I want to add this year, even if I'm not going to do it right away? If your budget allows for it, try adding a few additional pieces that maybe are wish list pieces for future years. That way you're continuing to build your music library as well. Do I want to explore commissioning a new piece of music from a composer? And if so, for what occasion? Composers love to write music, and there are a ton of phenomenal church music composers out there. So consider commissioning a new piece of music. Just reach out, even if you think that budget-wise it might be beyond the scope of what you can do. Reach out and see what happens. You never know. As a composer myself, I am more than happy to talk to people about commissioning a new piece and writing a new piece. In fact, sometimes I'm so excited that the fee that I get from it is not even that big of a factor, just because I love to write, and I love to write for a specific occasion or for a specific group in mind. The last question related to this repertoire and library management area is, what changes to the organization of my music library need to happen this year to help me spend more time with the music and less on administrative tasks? If you're like me, you want to spend all your time making music, and you don't really love doing the administrative tasks. I don't mind doing the admin side, but I would rather spend more time on the music itself. So how can I streamline the admin side to make sure that I'm focusing on the music? Next up is talking about schedules and rehearsal management. Is there anything in the current rehearsal schedule that needs to change, such as a better time or location? How much time do I want to spend throughout the program year on personal practice and preparation? This again goes back to the reflection of, did I have enough time to practice? If not, how do I add more time to that? And I try to block that time out. I'm not always the greatest at doing that, but I definitely try. As a conductor, what do you want to focus on to help rehearsals run more efficiently? Do you want to focus on starting and ending on time? Is that something that needs help? Do you want to help musicians have a positive experience each week? In a forthcoming episode, we're going to be talking all about rehearsals and how to be the most efficient in your rehearsals and help people have a good experience and make it feel like an overall positive experience. I also like to write down what additional rehearsals I need for the big seasons, for Christmas, Holy Week, Easter, Advent. I said those out of order, but you know what I mean. Are there any rehearsals that need to occur outside of regular weekly rehearsals or outside of our weekly schedule? This might be an additional Saturday rehearsal or an extended rehearsal during the week by adding 30 to 60 minutes. I want to make sure that I communicate that to everyone who is involved so that they can plan on it way ahead of time. If I'm bringing in additional musicians in for big seasons, or for a cantata or for a concert, what additional resources and time do I need to plan on? And specifically, what rehearsals do I need to plan on in addition to that? You should definitely rehearse with your instrumentalists, even if they're professionals. You need to budget some time to be able to make sure that everything is put together. And that takes extra time outside of regular rehearsals most of the time. Lastly, what social events do I want to host this year? And how can I help others get involved in helping plan those? I love trying to get people involved in helping me plan the social events, retreats, end of the year parties, whatever it is. But that part is really important in building community, and people love to plan those things. So try to involve other people in doing that. But write down when you tentatively want to do that, and pick dates for them and everything, and think through that. Lastly, under the budget category, in looking at my programming for the year, what budget do I have to accomplish that? So what is the projected budget for the year? There's different types of budgets out there, and again, we'll cover this in a future episode, so that you can get an idea based on what your budget is. But look at what your budget is and figure out how you can accomplish what you want to accomplish this year. If you need additional budget for something big, maybe you're doing a big event or a big celebration or concert or a big service or something, ask yourself, what additional budget might I need to ask for to accomplish my vision for this? Can I purchase a bulk of my music and supplies at the beginning of the year, or do I need to pace it out, again, based on the budget? If it's the latter, what dates do I need to order things, such as new music, so it can arrive in time for rehearsals? So if you can't bulk purchase all your music over the summer, if you're purchasing new music, you need to schedule in your calendar when it needs to be done by so that you get the music in time to distribute to everyone. Are there any other larger budget items that you're hoping to add this year? If so, what are they, and how do I go about funding them, if there's no money in the church budget to do so? Are there any other budgetary things that I need to consider for this upcoming program year? So once your plans are made, the last phase of building out your program year is to finalize details and put your schedule together. So everything in the finalized phase is related to the calendar and putting it down on paper. This is basically where you take pen to paper, but really I would say use pencil instead. So the first thing that you need to consider is your calendar. So the very first thing I'll do in the finalized stage is I will create my calendar, and sometimes I'll blend this together with the planning stage. But I get my blank calendar put together in a Word document, and then I go through and I mark out all the regular rehearsals, all the regular services that we're singing at or that we're playing at. I mark down any extra rehearsals, any social events, anything that needs to be on the calendar that people need to know about. I put it down on the calendar. And I put call times, and I put the time of the service as well, so that it's clear that, okay, it's a 7 o'clock service, but call time is actually 5:30 p.m. That way that it's clear when it's starting and how long people are going to be there before. Every time that you add a date, you want to make sure that you include all the details of it. And I do this for my entire program year, September through May. And this ensures that everyone has all of the important dates well in advance. Again, just respecting other people's time goes a long way in making sure that they have a positive experience and want to continue to come back and participate. Once you've filled the calendar out with all the important dates, you're going to take your repertoire planning document where you listed all the dates of what you're planning to sing when, and you're going to put the repertoire onto your master calendar here that you're creating. In my context, I actually have two different calendars. I have one that is just the hymn list, so I have all the dates with all the hymns and service music that we're doing. And then I distribute this to all of my ensembles and to everybody, because in where I work right now, we use the same hymns and service music throughout all the services that we have, but different ensembles perform at different services, and so we have kind of this master hymn list that goes out to everybody. And most people appreciate just having a hymn list anyway that is separate, that they can just refer to quickly. And then the second is the main calendar that I'm talking about here. And this is the master calendar with all the dates and all of the choral anthems that you're going to be doing, or handbell anthems if you're in a handbell ensemble or whatever your ensemble is, and list each of those on the dates that you're doing them, so that people know when they know that they're going to sing it. And you could organize this in a few different ways based on your own context. But the main idea is to give a calendar with all of the dates and times, and also communicate your complete music list for the year so that people can reference that and they can look ahead. In my years of doing this, I love to see, and I see regularly, people practicing things ahead of time because they know what to expect. They know what's coming up. And even in a weekly email that I send to my choir, I let them know what we're going to be working on in the upcoming rehearsal, and people come prepared. They have things marked, and it just helps everybody to have a positive experience. Now, on my calendars, I put one caveat down, and that is that things are always subject to change. This gives everyone a sense of the vision for the upcoming year musically. The calendar does, but it also lets them know how their time will be used. And I find that if you are cognizant of people's time and help them have a great musical experience, they will keep coming back. So really, this final phase, the finalize phase, could really be called, or I should call it, something like flexibly finalize, or finalize with flexibility, or something like that. But I usually just say finalize. But just because you put everything on paper and it has an assigned date, it does not mean that everything is set in stone. It's important, no matter how much you love what you've planned and what you've put together, it's extremely important to stay flexible. Things change, and sometimes at the last minute, and that's okay. And things do not always go according to plan. As much as you try to plan as much as you can, things just change. And the good news is, when things change, you don't have to rework your entire year. You just have to make small adjustments here and there. And with this framework, you are set up for success. and you have a plan and you're on track to building a thriving program. So as you consider implementing these ideas, I encourage you to get this done as early in the summer as possible. This will give you more time to focus on learning the music you have planned and focus on other aspects of your music ministry as well. All right, so as we finish up today's episode, I invite you to try maximizing your summer to help you build a thriving program. Even if you're not ready to fully implement this system, try some form of reflecting, planning, and finalizing. You can implement this just for yourself, for your choir, or for the entire church music program. See what works for you and how it can help you where you are serving. If you found today's episode helpful, like, follow, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to help spread the word. And be sure to find us on Instagram at The Practical Church Musician or online at our official website, which is brand new, thepracticalchurchmusician.com. As we wrap up episode 3, I invite you to join me next time as we explore another topic in the treasure trove of topics related to church music and service as a church musician. Until next time, keep singing, keep playing, keep practicing, and keep moving forward.